Holding in my hand a perforated belt here, and it has a lot to do with what's going to be happening out in the lettuce fields here around Yuma County. And indeed, we thought we'd come in and find out and let you know just what happens. We've already talked to Paul Rademacher a couple of times about crops, but this time, let's talk to you, Paul, about what's going on out here in the field. We've gone into the field, we've chisel plowed it to loosen up the soil down there. We've irrigated at least one time. We've gone in with the discs and we disc up the field. What's going to be happening now? The fields have been sitting kind of dormant here for a while.
Well, at this point, we've got our pre-plant fertilizer on and our pre-plant herbicide, so we're going to list up and pre-shape, getting ready to plant.
That's what this machine is doing right here.
Listing, right.
Okay. Now, what does it mean by listing?
Making furrows, shaping the beds. It outlines our beds for us, and to where we can shape it, because all the lettuce and vegetable crops are planted on what we call beds, 2 seed lines to the bed.
Now you don't stop here, you have to shape it then, don't you?
We pre-shape it after the lister, and then the planter will come back with a shaper again on it, and we'll plant in at the same time. The pre-shaper will also be putting Admire down, which is an insecticide to control the whiteflies.
That's sort of what we call a systemic type pesticide that goes up in the root system of the plant.
That's correct.
And this kills the whitefly?
Very effective.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about this field out here. Why do you have to shape it and form it all so much?
We're trying to get as uniform a density in the soil as we can. When we do that, it's not near as apt to slough off after we plant and for the beds to crack and disturb the plants then.
Let's take a look at this planter, because that's the final thing, is to get it planted. This belt here I showed to the folks is it got little tiny holes in it. Could you explain to us how the planter works?
Well, the planter is a Stanhay planter, and the basic planting mechanism is the belt. It goes inside of a box and it turns and it picks out 1 seed at a time and drops it through the shoe to the ground.
Now, how far apart will they put these seeds?
We're shooting for 2 1/8 to 2 1/4 inches.
Now, that's pretty much controlled by these belts on this wheel down here.
That's correct. The belts are adjustable, and we adjust the distance with that.
Now, those wheels, as they turn, and that's actually what causes this belt to turn, and that wheel is what controls the seeds coming out.
That's correct. This planter happens to be a ground-driven planter, which we use, but some people use hydraulic motors, oil-driven, they call it.
Now, there's other types of planters, too. There's one called a vacuum planter, which works pretty well for some crops.
That's correct. And they do work good for some crops. We haven't used it for this. We've been very satisfied with the Stanhay, and it's just something that's pretty proven, pretty trouble-free.
Now, Paul, what about the water here? You have to be very careful and judicious about the way you use your water.
Oh, yeah. We only put on what's necessary. For germination, why we sprinkle for that. Okay. And that's a 3-fold process it does. It cools the ground down, lets the lettuce seed germ, which in our 110 degrees it won't germ.
Okay.
And it moves the salts down.
Okay.
And then naturally it does the germination, it makes it more uniform. Every seed gets the same amount of water at the same time.
Paul Rademacher is a grower for Royal Farms, and he tells me that they can't grow lettuce at 85 and above degrees, so they have to cool it down with the water. And they do it right here in Yuma County. I'm George Gatley, and that is First News Today.